Welcome into Man vs. Machine, where we have Ed Feng on with us. Find him on Twitter at @ThePowerRank. And we go over 3 games that he's picked out that his numbers are telling him to bet on. He's gone 2-1 pretty much every week this college football season, but he is off a bounce back last week of just going 1-2. We'll bring him in now. Ed, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing awesome. How you doing, Drew?
Good, man. And we were just talking, you've been 2-1 pretty much every week, I believe, this college football season, but now in bounce back mode off of a 1-2 week. How are you feeling? You feeling confident, or is that throwing you off your game?
No, I'm feeling confident. I like to emphasize the process, and honestly, I think my handicapping was better last week than it was the previous 2 weeks. I was definitely off on the Fresno game, but there were 850 some yards in the Colorado State New Mexico game. One I would pick again anytime, any week.
Yeah, so you had the over in that one, over 800 yards, like you just said. You'd like to get those as W's, huh?
You would, but hey, that's what happens, man. There's a lot of randomness in football. Team blows it on 4th down or has a turnover deep in the other team's territory. These things happen. So just try not to worry about it. Think about next week.
Cool, man. Well, we got 3 games. Going to be breaking them down right now. 3:30 Saturday. App State from the Sun Belt plays UMass, the independent. It looks like App State's laying 3.5 at the Greek, 3 at 5 dimes, a total of 55.5, pretty much across the board on SBR odds right now. How are you looking to bet this one, Ed?
Drew, this spread really jumped out at me. My numbers put this closer to 11 points for App State on the road. And let me tell you about how I come up with that. I come up with a bunch of different metrics to rank teams from 1 to 130 in college football. The most basic is I use margin of victory in games, and I adjust for strength of schedule. I also do yards per play as a way of ranking teams on both offense and defense, and then I can combine them back into a team ranking. I also look at closing point spreads in a market and run that through the same algorithm. All 3 of these measures say that App State is a near FBS average team, so somewhere near 60th in the country. All 3 of these measures also say that UMass is about the 100th best team in the country. It equates to about maybe a 2 touchdown difference on a neutral field. I think this line's coming from UMass's pretty excellent performance last week. They put a pretty big beat down on Georgia Southern. And App State hasn't really looked the part so far this season in some of their games. We've talked about them earlier, and I think that's why the spread is where it's at. But I think you got to trust the program in App State that has been excellent over the past 3 or 4 years, and I'm going to take that side. But I really want your opinion on this one, Drew. You know these teams.
Yeah, and we brought this one up earlier. I'm actually, I have a small bet on UMass, and really the reasons are because when you look at what their last 4 games, they've pretty much been competitive ATS-wise in all of them. And you bring up the Georgia Southern game, where it was a unique situation because they had three weeks to prepare for that Georgia Southern triple option and did very well, blew them out. But also in that 3 weeks, they became a healthier team, went back to fundamentals, and they looked a lot better defensively. So putting all of those kind of situations and at home against an App State team that you brought up is not the same App State that we've known in years past. So really for all those reasons, I kind of jumped on UMass. Right at the opener, I believe it was either plus 3.5 or 4, but now you can get App State as low as 3 right now. So, yeah, I just took the other side, man, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's nice. App State's got a couple injuries you should be concerned about at running back. They are a team that likes to run the ball, pretty conservative on offense. Something that should definitely concern you, but I just think, I mean, especially if you can get this game at 3, definitely something I like to side on App State.
Yeah, and in this price range, it's getting a little out of hand. I just don't know if UMass is getting enough. But yeah, for Man vs. Machine record-keeping purposes, we got Ed on App State -3, and you can catch that at 5 dimes right now. We got on to the night slate. We got on Big Ten Network, a Big Ten game here, Nebraska versus Purdue. Looks like Purdue's laying 5.5, 48 across the board on SBR odds right now. How you looking to bet this Big Ten matchup, Ed?
Yeah, so this is a game in which I like the over. Nebraska is a very interesting team because I've never seen quite a lame duck head coach as much as Mike Riley. Nebraska fired the athletic director earlier this season. Riley is his days are numbered there. But what I like about this game is how Nebraska's offense has performed over the past 2 games. They've gone up against two top 10-ish type defenses in Ohio State and Wisconsin. Actually, I think two of the best teams in the country. They have put up 6.2 yards per play, which is good. That production and that performance really hasn't shown up on the scoreboard, and I think that's what's driving this total lower than what it should be. I think Nebraska's offense has been surprisingly good this season. I think they'll score, even though Purdue's defense has been good. I think we'll see some points on both sides of the ball. We talked about Nebraska's offense. Purdue's offense isn't fantastic, but Nebraska's defense isn't great. They have a couple guys dinged up in the secondary. And I was just talking to some people. I had Bob Stoll on my podcast this week and talked about how important injuries are in the secondary. So I see more than 51 points in this game, and I like the over.
Yeah, this one's kind of surprising with that Purdue offense sitting at 48. So going with the over in the Nebraska-Purdue game. Around the same time slot, we got this one on ABC in the Big 12. Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma laying 20 at home, 73 the total. How you betting this one, Ed?
Yeah, this is definitely one in which I like the over. I mean, these teams scored like 500 points last year when they got together. I see the reason why the total is only in the low 70s this year. Texas Tech defense has gotten a lot better. This was a unit that was awful last year, but they had a lot of injuries. So you saw a lot of guys in the secondary getting some playing time. They've bounced back. They're a much better defense. You've seen similar things with Oregon's defense, where they had a lot of injuries last year, were awful, and you see the bounce back because you have players that have some experience. But in Oklahoma, you have the most explosive offense in the country. They are a clear number one when you're looking at my adjusted yards per play. We all saw how they destroyed an Ohio State defense earlier this year. That Ohio State defense is actually fifth in the nation in my adjusted yards per play. So just shows you how explosive this offense is with Baker Mayfield. As good as I think Texas Tech's defense is, I think Oklahoma is going to score a lot of points. And then Texas Tech, their offense is good. I see them scoring a lot of points too. The only worry you have in this game is if a couple turnovers really tip the favor in Oklahoma's way early in this. If this game gets out of hand and Oklahoma starts slowing the game down to preserve the victory. But I don't think that happens. I like the over in this game.
All right, so Ed on the over, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, also on the over in the Nebraska-Purdue game, and on the App State side in the App State versus UMass game. He's been a 2-1 machine. Last week just went 1-2, so bounce back mode, but nonetheless very profitable this season. So hats off to you on that, Ed. And
I'm not fired after last week.
What's that?
I'm not fired after last week, Drew.
Dude, 1-2? Hell no, man. You're just a drop in the pan here, man. You've been profitable. Right, we appreciate it much. What else has caught your attention college football betting wise so far this year that you want to bring up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked a lot about Colorado State over the past couple weeks. We could have talked about them again this week about how they have an awesome offense and a stinky defense, but I don't know. I thought the listeners would get bored. That doesn't mean that Colorado State isn't a team that you should consider, especially on that total this week. We're here in Ann Arbor. We're still getting over that hangover of that game at Happy Valley last week, and then Penn State goes to Ohio State. So definitely an interesting game. I don't know how that's not the night game, but they play at 3:30 tomorrow. Huge Big Ten game with a lot of playoff implications.
Yeah, man. Do you have any opinion on the NC State Notre Dame matchup?
Yeah, that is a side I actually wrote down. Is that game still at 3.5-ish?
No, I think it's at 7.
Oh, it's at 7. Yeah, I think my numbers really like Notre Dame. They caught a break a little bit last week because USC had a couple of pretty key injuries on that defensive line, and Notre Dame was really able to dominate on the ground. I'm not sure they do that against NC State. But Notre Dame has been a heck of a team this year. Somehow have been flying under the radar. Their only losses to Georgia by a single point, and Georgia has also been one of the top 5 teams in the country this year. So I definitely see Notre Dame winning that game. I'd have to go back and look at what my numbers say exactly by how much. North Carolina State's clearly an interesting team. They got some pretty big wins this season. They also have a kind of inexplicable loss to South Carolina. Definitely a team that's on the rise, but I think Notre Dame is the better team, and they're at home this week.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but from just a matchup standpoint, NC State's defensive front, I believe they're a top 10 rush defense. And you can just tell those guys get after it. So matchup-wise for Notre Dame, it's not like you brought up against USC. They kind of controlled it like that. I think that they're going to have a tough time against NC State. So you going with the favorite, that doesn't worry you with NC State. And I believe NC State's off a bye week as well. So a couple things.
Yeah, I need to do a little bit more research on that, Drew. And I would completely agree. I mean, I've heard a lot about this NC State front, NFL guys on the defensive line, and that's going to be a much different story than playing against USC's backups last week.
Yeah, for sure. Good point there, Ed. Well, yeah, man, anything else? And where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, you can always find me at The Power Rank on Twitter. All the good stuff on my site goes on my email newsletter, so you can sign up for that at thepowerrank.com. You get a sample of the member predictions that are usually reserved for paying members of my site. So you can sign up for that at thepowerrank.com.
All right. For Ed Feng, I'm Drew Martin. We'll see you next week.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.